And finally, new rule as an Ivy League graduate who knows the value of a liberal education, I have one piece of advice for the youth of America. Don't go to college.
You know, I would actually think this advice was marginally based if the reasoning behind this was because it's just a capitalistic snare designed to bait you into starting your adult life under a massive mountain of debt. If that was his reasoning here, I would actually think it's kind of based, but unfortunately that's not going to be his reasoning at all.
And if you absolutely have to go, don't go to an elite college, because as recent events have shown, it just makes you stupid.
College kids are stupid because they don't reflexively support Israel. Of course.
There are few, if any, positives to come out of what happened in Israel, but one of them is opening America's eyes to how higher education has become indoctrination into a stew of bad ideas, among them the simplistic notion that the world is a binary place where everyone is either an oppressor or oppressed. In the case of Israel, oppressors being babies and bubbas. The same students who will tell you that words are violence and silence is violence were very supportive when Hamas terrorists went on a rape and murder rampage worthy of the Vikings. They knew where to point the fingers at the murdered, and then it was off to ethics class. Now, I recognize that a certain amount of foolishness is expected of college kids, but mixing Jägermeister and tomato juice isn't the same as siding with terrorists. 34 student groups at Harvard signed a letter that said the apartheid regime is the only one to blame, proving they don't know what constitutes apartheid. They don't know much of anything, actually. But it
okay, so the three things that he said there, you'd have to be an idiot to support Palestine over Israel. That was kind of the implied message of the whole segment there. There's this little talking point about how if you think Israel is an apartheid state, you don't even know what apartheid means. And there's the other little point that he made about how college kids, they think the world is just oppressors and oppressed. And so, of course, Israel must be the oppressor, which he's kind of poo-pooing as a ridiculous idea. Of course, Israel's not an oppressor. Of course, Israel's not an apartheid state. All of that stuff is just a bunch of hooey and nonsense, and they've been brainwashed and indoctrinated. Okay. So, you stupid fucking prick. Let's go look in that little place that you haven't seen in quite some time called fucking reality. So, first of all, let's go ahead and define apartheid. So apartheid was a system of institutionalized racial segregation that existed in South Africa and Southwest Africa, now Namibia. From 1948 till the 1990s, apartheid was characterized by political culture based on bossship, bosshood, which ensured that South Africa was dominated politically, socially, and economically by the nation's dominant minority white population. This is the legal standard of apartheid. The United Nations General Assembly adopted the International Convention on the Suppression and Punishment of the Crime of Apartheid in 1973. The ICSPCA defines apartheid as inhuman acts committed for the purpose of establishing and maintaining domination by one racial group over another racial group and systematically oppressing them. This is the United Nations and the ICSPCA's definition of apartheid. Segregation is carried out by implementing separate legal regimes for Jewish and Israeli Palestinians living in the same area. In the occupied West Bank, Jewish Israeli settlers living in the illegal settlements are governed by Israeli civil laws, while Palestinians also living in the West Bank are governed by Israeli military law. Two separate legal systems. The Jews get a civilian legal system. The Palestinians get a military legal system. Which one of those do you think is more lenient? Which one of those do you think you have more rights in? In Israel itself, there exists no Israeli nationality shared by all citizens, Jewish and non-Jewish alike. Rather, citizens are divided into national categories of Jewish, which affords them a set of rights and privileges above the other categories, or Arab with comparatively restricted rights and privileges. This separation was reiterated when Israel passed the nation-state law in 2018, essentially codifying decades of discrimination and enshrining two classes of citizens in law. Israel carries out various acts that are prohibited by the UN Apartheid Convention, including forcible transfer of Palestinians to make way for illegal Israeli settlements, preventing Palestinians from returning to their homes and lands, including millions of refugees living in exile, systemic and severe deprivation of fundamental human rights of Palestinians based on their identity, denying Palestinians the right to freedom of movement and residence, especially but not limited to Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, murder, torture, unlawful imprisonment, and other severe deprivation of physical liberty, prosecution of Palestinians because of their opposition to apartheid. Separate legal system, separate citizenship status. We have seen the videos of Palestinian families literally being removed from their homes by the military so that Jewish families can move in. And that's not, in Bill Maher's opinion, an apartheid state. That is not one racial group treating another racial group as an oppressed class. Like, if this isn't fucking oppression, then the word oppression has no meaning anymore. If this isn't oppression, then nothing the fuck is. What a stupid, evil prick Bill Maher is. What a dishonest sack of subhuman shit Bill Maher is. By the way, Amnesty International also recognizes Israel as an apartheid state. Here is an opinion poll of Israeli citizens. What political strategy should the next government adopt on the Palestinian issues? This is from July 2023. Strive for peace based on the two-state solution. Israeli Jews, 35% say yes to that. Strive to annex the West Bank and establish a single state with privileged status for Jews, 30%. Strive to annex the West Bank and establish one state with full rights for all, 10%. Don't know, 25%. So the two-state solution is the most popular, to be fair, but 30% of the fucking population of Israel, and probably more after these events that have happened recently, after these Hamas attacks, 30% of these people believe that they should just take over the whole shebang, take the West Bank, and establish a state with a privileged status for Jews. Literally, the textbook UN definition of an apartheid state, 30% support that. And probably a much larger majority already support a system that is tantamount to apartheid now. They just haven't quite taken away all the land yet. Over half of respondents said they agreed to some extent with the statement, most Jews are better than most non-Jews because they were born Jews. Over half of Israelis polled said that Jews are superior to all other races. This is a Jewish supremacist state. I am not anti-Semitic. I like Jewish people. I will defend Jewish people from anti-Semitism all day long. Anybody who fucking says an anti-Semitic word around me will get pushback. I promise you that. But that does not change the fact that Israel is a Jewish supremacist state. It's evident in their policy making. It's evident in their social attitudes. It's evident in the way that they treat the Palestinian people, who are, by the way, an oppressed class. 37% of respondents were either somewhat disturbed or very disturbed by the fact that half of pharmacists in Israel are Arabs. So massive racism against Arab pharmacists. The poll found 27% of respondents found they were either a little disturbed or very disturbed by the fact that an Arab Israeli Supreme Court Justice, George Kara, head of the judicial panel that convicted former President Moshe Kostov of rape. So a full quarter of the country a little disturbed or very disturbed that an Arab Israeli Supreme Court justice weighed in on this decision. Channel 10 said the question about Justice Kara and Arab pharmacists were meant to parallel CNN's questions about what Europeans believe to the extent of Jewish influence. 74% of respondents said that they get at least a little disturbed by hearing conversations in Arabic in public. Another 88% of respondents said they'd be disturbed to some degree if their son were to befriend an Arab girl. 90% of respondents were asked about their daughter befriending an Arab boy. Not even fucking, not even dating, just befriending. 88% of Jewish people in Israel would be disturbed if their son befriended an Arab girl, and 90% would be disturbed if their daughter befriended an Arab boy. And you want to tell me that there is not a massive problem with racism in this country? If 90% of white people in America would be disturbed by their daughter befriending a black dude, we would have no problem fucking condemning that instantaneously. Bill Maher would fucking balk at that statistic, would he not? I don't know anymore, I guess. I would hope he would, but this is okay. This is fine. Now let's look at this conflict from 2008 to 2020. In that time span, there were 5,590 Palestinian deaths and 251 Israeli deaths. And you can see here it broken down by year, showing the number of injuries in red and the number of deaths in blue. And you can see this is a pretty lopsided goddamned conflict, okay? The vast majority of casualties and injuries are on the Palestinian side because Israel has superior military might, superior military training, and a superior military arsenal. Okay? And the reason they have all that stuff is because, we gave it to them. Us, the UK, the Allies in general, at this point, mostly us. Mostly the United States of America. But now, since the war, nearly 5,000 Palestinians have been killed. Another 1,000 or so, I think, are missing, probably buried under debris, and are probably going to die. About 1,700 of those dead are kids. About 900 or so are women. And at least 13,500 people have been injured in Gaza, relentlessly bombarded in retaliation for the Hamas attack. Now, in fairness, the Hamas attack also claimed a lot of lives. Over 1,400 people were killed by Hamas in their attack on Israel. And not for a moment will you hear me supporting Hamas. Not for a moment will you hear me saying, oh, yeah, it's totally justified what Hamas did. I won't say any of that shit. But I will say that it's kind of fucking disproportional, don't you think? A terrorist group comes into your country and kills 1,400 people. And so your solution is bomb the shit out of civilians. And then you call it defense. And anyone against it is against you defending yourself. That's kind of insane. It would be like if a black person murdered a white person and then we just bombed an entire fucking black neighborhood indiscriminately and said, like, yeah, we're defending ourselves. I've been watching this dude since I was a literal little ass kid. When I first saw this guy, he was a libertarian hosting a show called Politically Incorrect, one of the coolest, most raucous shows on television. And he was super libertarian to the point where, you know, I remember that he had a discussion one time about whether a kid should be able to go in a drugstore and buy heroin, and he said yes. You know, he was that libertarian. And then I watched over the years as he became more of a liberal, then kind of delved into some left-wing populism for a hot minute, and then became a shit lib. And now I would say he's almost to the point of being like a neocon, or maybe just like I mean, he's definitely not like a traditionalist conservative, but he's venturing into neocon territory with these kind of takes. And I honestly think that if he did not have like personal grievance with Trump, like if he had not personally fought against Trump for so long, I think he might even just become a Trump supporter at this point, because he's that far fucking gone to the right. Now, obviously, I mean, he's still like a degenerate pot smoking weirdo, so he'll never go all the way right. He's never going to embrace that like traditionalist streak they've got. At least I don't think so. But as far as like social policy, it seems like he has embraced a right-wing agenda. As far as foreign policy, it seems like he has embraced a far right-wing agenda. I guess, although in this instance, this seems to be a pretty fucking ubiquitous feature of both parties in America, unfortunately, both reflexively pro-Israel and, you know, basically turn a blind eye to anything that is anti-Israeli, anything that shows that maybe Israel is an apartheid state, Israel is racist, Israel is discriminatory, Israel murders civilians. All that stuff swept under the rug, turned away from, turned the blind eye. We don't see any of that. All of that is completely fucking invisible to us. Only the atrocities of Hamas are visible. Hamas kills 1,400 people. Oh, there they are. Israel kills 5,000 civilians in retaliation and already killed 5,000 civilians in the years leading up. Just from 2008 on to 2020, by the way. Killed 5,000 people in that time period and has killed 5,000 people in the last 14 days or so. All of that, invisible. We don't see it. We don't know about it. We don't hear it. We don't know nothing about it. That's okay. That's them defending themselves, the little scamps, defending themselves with the billions of dollars in weapons that we provide for them. Turn a blind eye to all that shit. Oh no, we see that. We turn a blind eye to the murders that they do with those weapons, but, you know, we don't turn a blind eye to the weapons themselves. That's for self-defense. Is Palestine stopping Israelis from drinking clean water, fishing, traveling outside their home, building a home, traveling outside their country, building a home? No. None of that's happening to Israelis. Israelis are the alphas. Israelis are the top dogs in that region. Israelis make the rules. Palestinians are subject to the rules. So the idea that there is no oppression going on here is ludicrous. The idea that there is not an apartheid state happening here. I would love to hear Bill Maher's definition of apartheid state then, because apparently it bears no resemblance to the UN's. And it bears no resemblance to what we called an apartheid in South Africa either. So, yeah, I can't believe that yet another person that I grew up watching, that I had some admiration for, has sunk to these depths of dishonesty, has sunk to these depths of just brazenly embracing the wrong side. You know, and once again, if Bill Maher was willing to make a case for Israel and against Palestine that at least addressed and factored in the mitigating factors that I've talked about here, which, by the way, I did a very surface scrubbing of those things. Obviously, you could go way more in depth on the subject, but none of that's brought up. None of that's addressed. None of that's counter-argued. All of that is just ignored. If your argument is based upon not listening to your opponent, then I don't think it's a very impressive argument. If your argument is based on going la 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 whenever something that might challenge your position comes up, then I'm not impressed with your argument. And I'm not impressed with Bill Maher's argument here for those exact reasons. If the Bill Maher of today was transported back to you know, those the Bush war in Iraq, I almost just think he would be a fucking George Bush supporter. He'd probably fucking be like, oh, well, you know, we got to fight him over there so we don't fight him here. Like stuff he used to argue against every night on his show. Like this guy was one of the foremost anti-war voices in this country in the mainstream during Bush's little misadventure in Iraq. But now I almost feel like this Bill Maher would be on Bush's side, would probably be telling us how this war is justified and anybody who is against this war is a pro-terrorist, loves Al-Qaeda, whatever. So, I mean, I don't know. This is just not even close to the Bill Maher that, you know, existed, you know, when I was growing up. And this is literally like, I've watched this dude since I was a literal fucking child. I have been with him through a massive amount of his personal development. And just like Richard Dawkins, I feel like there was a point where he just stopped moving forward, dug his heels into the fucking sand, and just said no. And it's even kind of worse than Dawkins, because Dawkins just kind of has stopped. Bill Maher has literally regressed. Bill Maher has like started moving backwards in his beliefs. He started moving to this weird place where I almost feel like the Bill Maher of today and the Bill Maher that existed when I was a big fan during the Bush administration, those guys wouldn't even be able to coexist. He's that different. He's that changed. And I don't know if it was just a case of he's always been a complete fraud and a phony, and I just didn't see it then because he was saying stuff that I liked, or if he has like suffered some sort of major brain damage, or if he has just like started realizing he's got to grift the boomers because he's like the young audience isn't turning up for him. So now he just has to play hospice care for the boomer demo. I don't know what the fuck has happened to this guy, but it's hideous.